You getting ready to break a rule. You getting ready to go into another dimension. You thought it was too late, but God's going to do it. This is the kind of help you need when you have underestimated what God is about to do in your life, and you realize that what you brought is not enough for where He's taking you.
The me that I'm going to be as I grow into what God called me to be is the me that God has already seen. That sets you free from trying to become something. And I thought, oh man, I wish I was that. You don't have to wish you was. Long before life did what life did, and you did what you did, God knew you.
When Jesus encounters Simon, the Bible said that Simon was washing his nets. His belief system said, it's over. They had toiled all night and caught nothing. And his belief system had taught him that if you can't catch at night, you can't catch at all. His limited belief system has left him in a place of giving up on what he needed to make his business work. And when Jesus came along, that's right, he gave up. When Jesus came along, Jesus is confronting fishermen who are washing their nets, which is a sign, I have given up. And I want to know, is there anybody in here who's washing your nets? Who has decided it's too late, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too thin, I'm too short, I'm too whatever it is that made you wash your nets. I want to challenge you today, because Jesus is about bringing Simon into the awareness that his belief system is wrong. Washing your nets means you have given up hope that you can go any further, and you have settled to be on the sidelines of life rather than to be in the game. Made yourself comfortable with an empty boat, no fish, which means no business, and you have decided this is as far as you can go. And some of you even justified by saying, if the Lord would have meant for me to catch fish, he would have blessed me to catch fish. So it must not be God's will for me to catch any fish. Well, here comes God walking in Jesus down to the seashore, and Simon is washing his nets. Washing your nets means deciding that nobody will ever love you. Washing your nets means deciding that you can't go any higher or any further than where you've gone. Washing your nets is giving up on your dream and deciding that all of your effort was for naught. Because it didn't work like he thought it was going to work, he quit. He's alive, but he quit. He's breathing, but he quit. He's functioning, but he quit. You'd be surprised at the people in here that are breathing and dead. They breathing, but they quit. They got their makeup on, but they quit. They got their dress on, but they quit. They got their suit on, but they quit. They came to church, but they quit. They quit long time ago. Let me tell you something. Divorces don't happen when the papers come. People can quit and still be fixing breakfast. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? People can quit and still be giving roses. Quitting isn't just a removal of the body from the situation, it's a removal of the spirit from the situation. And Peter's spirit has been broken, and he's washing his nets. And Jesus comes down there and disrupts everything that Peter believes. Whenever Jesus comes, let me warn you, he will disrupt everything. I know you want a nice, neat little Jesus that fits comfortable inside your belief system, that won't shake up anything, that won't get you out of your comfort zone, that won't make you have to go for yourself, that won't make you have to stand for yourself. I know you want a nice little, neat little Jesus that you can fit into a package of what you've been taught about Jesus. But Jesus was a rabble rouser. Jesus was radical. Jesus was a yoke breaker. Wherever Jesus went, he terrorized the city. He turned it upside down. If Jesus got in a city, all bets were off on how things were going to go. And everything was going according to plan until Jesus come. Nudge somebody and tell them Jesus is coming. Jesus is coming. Jesus is coming. He's coming into your house. He's coming into your finances. He's coming into your business. He's coming into your life. He's coming into your plans. He's coming into your future. And everything you thought you were through with, God is getting ready to do a new thing. God is getting ready to do something radical. God is ready to start an uprising. And Jesus walks over. He don't even know whose boat it is. He just gets on the boat. And then says to Simon, thrust out a little from land. Listen at this. And all of a sudden you see Simon have to put down his nets and get back on the boat. That alone is revival. To stop feeling sorry for yourself and talk about what didn't work and how you worked so hard and how you put so much into it and how you toiled all night and nothing came through. You ain't got time to rehearse all that stuff. That's over. That's over. That's over. You can't do nothing about that. That's over. You can't fix that. That's over. You can't change that. That's over. That's over. That's over. That's over. That's over. You are spinning up your today, rehearsing your yesterday. Don't let your yesterday steal your today. That's over. That's over. That's over. That's over. That's over. That's over. Maybe there's a higher purpose for the boat than what you know. Jesus says, thrust out a little from land, and Jesus turns Peter's business into a platform. This is the only time in Scripture that I know of where Jesus turns a boat into a podium. And Jesus gets on the boat and sits down. And the crowd is all on the beach. And he thrust out from the land and turned the boat into a pulpit. And he sits in the pulpit. And he teaches. I do not know what he taught, but it must have been mesmerizing enough that he could sit on a boat without a mic that was thrust out from the land and not lose a crowd. Good God. Can't nobody preach like Jesus. If Jesus gets into a place, he'll turn it upside down. Do you not know that Jesus never had a PA system, never had a microphone, never had a camera, never had a flyer, never had a business card, and yet he preached to thousands of people, 5,000 men, not to mention women and children, and people would rather faint than miss hearing him preach. He didn't even have to jump. He didn't have to hoop. He didn't holler. Jesus sat down, and the crowd didn't leave. Jesus sat when he preached. He sat on the Mount of Olives and preached the Beatitudes. Sit on me, Jesus. Sit on me, Jesus. Sit on me, Jesus. What I'm doing ain't working. Sit on me, Jesus. Jesus sat down on the boat and he began to minister. And as he began to minister, the Bible said when he had finished preaching, now notice this, this is interesting. It never tells us what he preached. It tells us that he preached. It brings us all the way up to the boat. The boat thrust out from land. Jesus sits down and starts to preach. They never tell us what he preached. They just say when he had finished. Come on, keep up with me, Jamel. They say when he had finished. There are some things that God has kept a mystery. Because the real power here isn't just in what he said, but what he did. And when he began to speak these words and had ended speaking, he now says to Simon, and wait a minute, maybe this is not about the sermon. Maybe this is about Simon. Maybe the sermon is just the vehicle that Jesus traveled to capture Simon's attention. Maybe it's Simon that Jesus is after. Maybe it's Simon that Jesus wants to get to and make him understand what's going on. And he says to Simon what he told me to tell you. Launch out into the deep. Launch out. They don't hear me, Lord. I wish I had a group or a choir, somebody. Is anybody ready for this? Launch out into the deep. Get out of the shallow water. Go out into the deep. Launch out into the deep. God's got something for you, but it's in the deep. Look at somebody and say, you ain't deep enough. The reason it's not happening for you, the reason you're not getting it, the reason you don't get the breakthrough, the reason it's not materializing in your life is that you haven't gone deep enough. And Peter says, Simon says, I can't go, Lord. I've been toiling all night and I didn't ask you about last night. I'm tired of coloring inside of the lines. I'm tired of being a good little boy and eating my apple and going to bed. I'm getting ready to launch out into the deep. I'm getting ready to get radical. I'm getting ready to go to the next level. Somebody's watching me online. You don't realize that the only reason God gave you a business is so that it could be his platform. And God has maneuvered you into a position so that he could get the glory out of your life. And you're frustrated trying to work out the problems in the business. The problem isn't in the business, the problem is in you. When God gets your attention, everything in your business is going to change. Everything in your life is going to change. Everything on the boat is going to change. Launch out into the deep. Who am I preaching to? Look at your neighbor and tell him I'm getting ready to launch. If you can't launch, you can't go. If you can't launch, you can't go. If you ain't with me, you can't go. I am no longer willing to stay on the shoreline to keep you company. I'm going to launch out into the deep if I got to launch by myself. If my mama don't go, if my daddy don't go, if my sister, my brother don't go, I'm going to launch out into the deep because I have permission. And once I have permission, I can do it. I know it's not supposed to work in the daytime. The fish are normally biting at night. But if Jesus says it, it's going to happen at any time. Just when the devil thought it wasn't going to happen, just when you thought you missed your season, just when you thought it was over, God said, launch out into the deep. And suddenly I realized something. Simon owns the boat, but Jesus owns the sea. I said Simon owns the boat, but Jesus owns the sea. And what you want ain't in the boat, it's in the sea. And Jesus knows where your fish are. Slap somebody and tell them he knows where the fish are. It's the wrong time. Ain't nobody fishing. All the boats are docked. Everybody's quiet. Everybody's being passive. Everybody's laid back. Peter, the only fool out there in the middle of the water, in the middle of the day, at a time when no fisherman would be out in the water, because when the sun goes up, the fish go down. They eat at night or early in the morning. And at a time there's not supposed to be fish, Jesus says, launch into the deep. Whoever I'm preaching to is not even supposed to work like it's going to work. You get ready to break a rule. You getting ready to go into another dimension. You getting ready to do something out of season. It don't even make sense, but God's going to do it. You thought it was too late, but God's going to do it. Launch out into the deep. Shake yourself like this. I break every limitation that's been on you. I break every limitation that held you back. I break every limitation that stood in between you and what God said He's going to do. This is about unlocking your limitations. This is about kicking the brakes off. Have you ever tried to drive with the emergency brake on? You can do it, but it's God's getting ready to kick the brakes off. He's getting ready to unlock your limitation. That drag that's been in your life, that undertow that's been in your life. The Lord sent me here this morning to tell you He's going to unlock your limitation. You've been frustrated. You've been tied down. You even gave up and started washing your nets. But stop washing your nets. It's time to launch your boat. You own the boat, but He owns the sea. And when they launched out into the deep, they dropped their net. Watch this. This is important. I'm almost finished. They dropped their net. Net, N-E-T. N-E-T. They didn't bring enough. They didn't bring enough. They're thinking too small. They're thinking too limited. They only had one net with them. When I met them, they were washing nets, but they only put one net on the boat. Anytime you see Jesus on the boat, you better bring everything you got. Because whatever God is talking to you about is bigger than anything you ever did in your life. I came to tell you it's bigger. Are you hearing me? It's bigger than you think it is. Are you hearing me online? It's bigger than you think it is. That little net you got ain't going to be enough, because God's going to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all ye may ask or think. You didn't bring enough for what God is about to drop in your lap, pressed down, shaken together, running over. God's going to take you into overflow. Help! Somebody holler, help! You're about to get in a good trouble. You're about to get in good trouble. This ain't bad trouble. This is good trouble. This is the kind of help you need when you have underestimated what God is about to do in your life, and you realize that what you brought is not enough for where He's taking you.
I believe that God is not through with you. Tell your neighbor one more time, God is not through with you. And here's the proof. Here's the proof. You're still doing this, He's still making ways. If you're still doing this, He still has a plan for you. One prophet said on behalf of God, "For I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." That's Jeremiah chapter 29:11. Your grandma had that on a quilt somewhere, and you ought to get it in your heart and in your consciousness, because He knows the plans He has for you. I want to preach a little bit of faith before our 17-year anniversary. God is not through with us yet. Not yet. Stop doing this, and he'll quit doing what he does. But as long as you have breath, you have a reason to believe that all things are possible. You know, when I started the series, I mentioned Jeremiah. I mentioned Jeremiah 29:11 today. That's the most popular verse that he did, his greatest hit. But then he's writing to captives in Babylon who are going to be taken away. And when he was spoken to by God, check this out, he didn't really believe that God could do it through him because he had the three excuses that we mentioned earlier where he said, I don't have it, I don't know how, I'm not like them, I'm too young, I'm not like them, those who are seasoned, who can prophesy. I don't have it, I don't have the words that I need. And for us, it's not always words, it's resources, it's money, it's time, it's energy, it's good knees. I got all ages in the church, so we just hit everything. Too young, too old. You got Moses too old, Jeremiah too young. So all of that is an excuse. But remember what the Lord said. I want to show you the scripture again. I wasn't going to show this one, but I think we need the whole sandwich. Verse 5, chapter 1, the Lord said, before you were born, I knew you. K-N-E-W. The me that I'm going to be as I grow into what God called me to be is the me that God has already seen. That sets you free from trying to become something. And I thought, oh man, I wish I was that. You don't have to wish you was. Long before life did what life did, and you did what you did, God knew you. So when he says, I knew you before you were born, that means that God knows my potential. It also means I don't. I know my past. I know my preferences. I know my problems. God knows my potential. Only he does. Only he really knows what he put in you. Only he knows what he sees in 2 years that he's training you for right now. You got to believe this as I preach it. You got to put a little bit of faith on this word. A little bit of faith. God knew. K-N-E-W. And what is new to me is known to God. What is foreign to me is familiar to him. That's Jeremiah 1:5. He knows my potential. In the chat right now, God knows my potential. Say it. God knows my potential. Riverwalk, y'all aren't saying anything today. I feel your apathy. Say it right now. God knows my potential. But then in Jeremiah 29, he says, for I know the plans I have for you, and the plans I have for your older sister, and the plans I have for your best friend who's getting married this spring, but you're not yet. And the plans that I have for your friend who's getting on your last nerve and you keep trying to fix them, but you can't. And the plans that I have for your boss who you think is in control, but really I'm gonna move him to Minnesota in 6 months. So don't get impatient, just stay right there because I know the plans. My confidence is in God's knowledge. He said, I knew you before I formed you. You were spirit before you were skeletal. Before you had a birth certificate, you had a purpose. I knew you when. Now, when people say that, they want to keep you stuck in something that they're comfortable with. I knew you when. But when God says that, he's calling you forward into something that no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and neither has it entered into the heart of man what God has planned. So Paul does this annoying thing that we preachers do often, which is to make something that is such a struggle sound so simple. I don't know if it's been irritating you the last few weeks. It really gets under my skin where he said in verse 22, you were taught with regard to what you used to do and what you still struggle with, both secretly and openly, the rude things that you do, the rude things that you think. How many people would be impressed with how nice you are if they knew how nasty you wanted to be and didn't be in certain situations? So all of that's on the inside. Paul says, you were taught with regard to your former life to put off your old self. Thanks, Paul. Because he said you were taught. And here in the Greek, I spent 5.5 years on a seminary degree, so I have to use that sometimes. In the Greek, the phrase means that it follows from the teaching you received. So when God teaches you, it's to transform you, not to puff you up. You don't get these messages so you can look down on other people who aren't enlightened because you know more of the Bible than they do. It's so that you can grow by it. That's why God feeds you the Word of God, so that you can grow. And in this passage, he said, you were taught, give me verse 22, with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self. Now, the way you read that is, you were taught to put off your old self. Somebody taught you to put off your old self, but that's not what it means. It means you were taught Jesus in order that to put off your old self. So it's an infinitive imperative. It follows from the first one. It means you were taught, the reason God taught you, the reason he brought you here was so that you could put off. That's the reason God has given you teaching. That's the reason that God gives you a word. That's the reason God gives you an experience. That's the reason he leads you through the valley so you can get to know the shepherd. So that when you face that situation again, you'll be stronger, wiser, better, and ready. Stronger, wiser, better, and ready. I'm stronger, wiser, better, and ready. I'm stronger, I'm wiser, I'm better, and I'm ready. I was taught to put off my old way of life. Wouldn't it be nice if it were only that simple? Yeah, man, just put it off. Like this, like everybody in the room, do what I say when I say it. Ready? Stand up. I love the contrarians, like, no, I am seated in heavenly places with Christ. I know where this is going. Stand up. It's an illustration. Help me. Now sit down. That's kind of how I read it. Put off the old self and put on Jesus. That's simple, right? Well, so yesterday we're at Graham's Wrestling, right? And this lady was sitting up at the top of the bleachers and she kept yelling for her team, not just her kids, the whole team. And that's great. I yell for our team too. And it's great to do that and be supportive. Only know these kids can't hear you while they're out there wrestling. So all you're really doing is getting it out of your own system. They can't hear any of that. And besides, what is this lady gonna coach that kid to do from up there? I mean, maybe she was a former NCAA Division I champion in her heyday. Didn't get that feeling though, didn't get that impression. Just seemed like she was loud. And so this was the moment of moments. And I was already praying about how to end this series. And I was out there praying about it. And she gave me my answer. Because I'm thinking of Paul saying, just put off your old way of life. Just stop being negative. Be positive. Right? Ready? Just do that. Just stand up. Just trust God. Just trust him. Trust him. Like the Bible says. How? With all your heart. And so, all right, so it's a heavyweight match, right? And her team was the Spiders she was cheering for. She was cheering for the Spiders. Had a big spider on the back of the uniform, the singlet, the tights, the spandex that they make wrestlers wear. You gotta be tough to wear those tights out there. I'm telling you right now, that's tough. So it's a heavyweight match. That goes up to 285 pounds. And the boy who was winning was every bit of 285. And the boy who was losing was not, because it's a broad weight class. The boy who was winning was on top of the boy who was not winning. I think I'm gonna do this as an illustration. I put it in my notes. If you feel they need it, act it out. So I'm gonna act it out because I feel like you need it. I feel like you need it. Because I feel like all this is good, put off the old self. But what I wore in here is heavier than a jacket. What I wore in here and what I'm worried about is heavier than just a bad day. Remember, he said, the old self, old means it's been going on a long time. And a lot of the things we preach about real quick have been things you've been carrying for a long time. So it doesn't feel like, just put it off. Just stop being, manipulative. Dude, I struggle with manipulation because I was abandoned young. And so I had to make things happen. So that's the only way I know how to do stuff is to make things happen, because I had to make things happen. And now you're telling me, just take that trust God. So I'm gonna be the guy that was down on the bottom. And I'm gonna show you how you feel and what this lady was screaming. Graham, come up here. Graham's gonna be the big guy. Remember, this is an illustration. Had this been an actual reality, I would kick his butt right up here. But just get on top of me like you're 285. And so it's something like this. Don't hurt me. And then, all right, so maybe he has the bigger guy has his forearm in the back of his neck. So do that, yeah. And then the lady at the top of the bleachers is yelling, stand up, to the spider on the bottom. And I'm sure he thought, she knew his name, I don't remember, let's say his name was Timmy. Stand up, let's just call him Steven. Stand up, Steven. And I'm sure Steven was thinking on the bottom, oh, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to stand up. Thank you, lady at the top of the bleachers who hadn't exercised in 5 years, for reminding me what I'm supposed to be doing down here. And I think you feel like this when I preach sometimes, but you don't want to hurt my feelings, so you won't admit it. That I'm saying, trust God. And you are like, thanks. I didn't think of that. Yeah, I should just trust God. I already had to fire 14 employees, my small business, but I just trust God. That'll be great. That'll really mean a lot to their pregnant wives who are expecting their 4th child, and now I had to lay them off. I appreciate it. I'll trust God. Whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Be free. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be free. Never mind that this dependency is chemical and psychological and societal all at the same time. That's why when Barbara Kingsolver was on Holly's book club and she was talking about the opioid crisis in Appalachia, I was so enlightened for her to talk about how we judge people as being bad by their behaviors, but we don't understand the brokenness that came from their background to create the behaviors to begin with. Yeah. Stand up. She said, stand up, be a spider. I don't have 8 legs. I don't spin webs. I'm not a priest. I'm not a faith giant. I'm not the Apostle Paul. I'm not Jesus Christ. I'm just down here trying not to get pinned, trying not to be on my back. And what I realize when I preach more and more is like, I still need to tell you to stand up. But being told to do it and being taught to do it. Paul said, you were taught. Jesus. I can't see y'all right now. Am I doing good? Make some noise. I need the encouragement. This is very, very embarrassing. I did not want to do this illustration, But it'll help us get on the same page. Do the new you. I'm like, dude, the new me, I'm just trying to breathe, eat, feed people, not end up in prison. This pressure. Because I said stand up. You know what I want to say when somebody says stand up and you got to shut up. Hey, just go make it work and trust the word and step out on faith and all this. And there's something inside of you that says, you tell me to do it, but teach me to do it. You all right, Graham? You got the good part of this illustration. Why did I do it this way? I could have flipped this. Watch what happened when Paul said in verse 20, he said that, you got verse 20 ready? I'm running out of blood up here. That, however, is not the way of life you learned, next verse, when you heard about Christ and were taught in him, in accordance with the truth. So watch this. Everybody say, stand up. Stand up. Shout it. Say, stand up. Stand up. Quit. I don't want to be a Christian. I think I'm going to try Buddhism. This is too hard. I can't do this. But if truth comes, what I've been trying to do, what I know I need to do, what I wish I could do, what you keep telling me to do. Watch this. Buck, come. Buck, come. Buck. You see what happened when I called Buck? You see what happened when I called Buck? Oh, you see what that devil did when I called the name? When I said I got somebody greater. Greater is he that is in me than he that was on my back. Now I got it off me. You see what I just did? I called somebody bigger. I called somebody stronger. I called a state champion. And you knew it too. And see, the devil knows your weak spots, but he also knows that there's something in you that is so much greater. That what is in you is so much greater than whatever is on you. So that's why I declare and I prophesy and I preach and I proclaim in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, stand up, stand up, stand up.